Let's say some other group of yeah, there you go. He's compatible. Yeah, definitely. I'm several billion.
Oh, you're planning on having globally. Oh, it's for me. Oh.
They're for you.
Make it with some we all have to.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another Sunday Assembly, and I know you're all comfortable in your seats, but that's not how we do things here. So I'd like everyone to get up and get ready to start singing and dancing, clapping, whatever you are in the mood for. Not bad, everybody, not bad at all. Welcome to Sunday Assembly. Please take a seat. Give yourselves a round of applause, guys. That was awesome. All right, well, let's get some of the housekeeping things out of the way. Emergency exits are on your right and your left. If you brought kids, take them with you in the event of emergency. If you have cell phones, please turn them off. Sunday Assembly is a secular gathering. We celebrate life here. We are gathered to live better, to help often, and to wonder more. How many of you guys have been here for at least a year? Anybody at least a year? Look at that. How many of you have been here for maybe...
I'm sorry.
Nancy, you've been here for a lot longer than that. How many of you guys are like new, like this is your first time? Raise them really high. Awesome. Second time? Anyone your second time? You came back. All right, good. Thank you. Fantastic. While we're doing some applause, way on the other side of the Reason Center is Becky. I think she might be the only one there doing the child care, but let's show her some appreciation. Throughout the month, you'll see us talk about it a little bit later. We have all these different things that are going on, the trivia and the TED Talk and the pizza, and they're run by volunteers as well. Let's give them a round of applause for And of course, Nancy, where'd she go? Nancy, our volunteer coordinator, who was here in the morning setting everything up, along with Marie, and who else? And Thomas. Let's give them a round of applause. We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the awesome Reason Center, this building that we're in, that lets us use the place at such a low price. I recommend to all of you that you support the Reason Center as well as Sunday Assembly. If you need a place to have a meeting or a birthday party, a wedding, there was a wedding back on Valentine's Day here, it's a great place to be a part of, and so you'll find more information about that back in the front room over there. But yeah, so let's talk about this a little bit. Our topic for today is thinking critically, and I love that Frank was able to be our talk today from Sacramento Area Skeptics. So that's awesome. Anybody here from Sacramento Area Skeptics as well? Look at that, you brought like an entourage with you, that is so cool. And so they've got a monthly event that's up on our calendar. They get together and they drink. I mean, how cool is that, right? Those are like the third or fourth Friday of each month. Yeah. So that's really cool. And so, thinking critically, not drinking critically, by the way. Thinking, you can drink critically too, though. A lot of things happening in the world, obviously, as there always is. A lot of bad things happening in the world, but here at Sunday Assembly, we're here to focus on the good, awesome things that are happening. How about NASA and the Juno project? We launched a satellite, and now it's in orbit around a planet, taking pictures and doing studies, hopefully to figure out how that planet was formed and to give us more answers on how the solar system came to be. I think that's pretty awesome. At the same time, the Ark Encounter in Kentucky got launched, and so now there's a Noah's Ark exhibit, but giant thing.
With dinosaurs.
With dinosaurs on it, and man living together. And so we have one and the other. I think that's really awesome. Anybody here catch any Pokemon in the last couple of days? Fantastic. Is there any in the room right now that we should be aware of? We're okay? You would have caught them by now? No, some of you have no clue what I'm talking about. But if you're on Facebook, everyone on Facebook is posting about their Pokemon captures and what they found. So good job on catching them all. All right. So I'm done rambling. I want to introduce our main speaker for the day, Frank Mosier, like I said, from the Sacramento Area Skeptics. He's just here to talk to us about something that we all take for granted, and that's just thought and how we think what we think, but we don't. And so here to tell us about that, please welcome Frank Mosier.
Thank you, everyone. I'm honored to be here. I was very honored when David asked me to speak. And this topic actually is something that's really near and dear to my heart. Not just thinking critically, but kind of what I'll get into about the specifics. But I don't want to get ahead of myself, so let's just go ahead and get started at the beginning. So, critical thinking, right? We all agree, I'm sure all of us here at least agree, that it is invaluable. And I think that pretty much everyone you talk to, regardless of what they believe, whether they disagree with us completely, also agree that critical thinking is invaluable.
It is recorded.
But we obviously don't all do it necessarily well. Okay, so what holds us up? Where do we most often get it wrong when we're thinking, trying to think critically? So first, let's just talk about what critically thinking actually is. So it's a lot like open-minded. I think it's a kind of a buzzword. Everybody uses it, but what does it actually mean? What does it mean to be open-minded? What does it mean to think critically? And actually, those two both go hand in hand. So when we're thinking critically, we're looking at every side to an argument. We're weighing the evidence on both sides, the strong arguments, the weak arguments. We're looking at it, we're analyzing them. Okay. So the willingness to consider both sides of the argument, that's being open-minded, and that's a crucial element to thinking critically. And then the ability to accurately weigh the evidence, that's a crucial part. That, along with that willingness to consider both sides, that's what tells us how good, or what determines how good at critical thinking we actually are. So I doubt I've said anything shocking yet so far at all. I'm pretty sure everybody agrees on this, and talk's probably been actually a little boring so far. It's just what everybody knows. Whether I'm talking to Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins, or Ken Ham and Eric Hovind, they would probably all agree with what I just said. But I think we can all agree that not all of those names maybe apply critically thinking equally. So what's the difference? Where do most of us go wrong when we're trying to think critically? When we fail at critical thinking, where have we gone wrong? And we all go wrong. We try, but there's not one of us that doesn't fail at thinking critically sometimes, including myself. I'm not perfect, believe it or not. So when we're learning about something that we don't really have an opinion on yet, something that's neutral to us, we often are very good at thinking critically. We really look at it and say, okay, what's worth believing in here? Unfortunately, for very few topics can we actually approach it from a neutral point of view. Especially the most important topics, the topics that we should care the most about getting it right on. Usually they're at least tangentially related to something that we already have an opinion on, maybe a strong opinion on, okay? And that's really our big hang-up right there, is that the pre-existing opinions that we have. So the more certain we are that something is true, is often the times that we are the worst at thinking critically about it, okay? For every single one of us here right now, there's probably something that we believe, maybe even something that we feel like we've looked at in depth and critically, but we're actually wrong about, okay? You still probably all agree with this. It's not hard to think abstractly and think, okay, yeah, there's probably something I'm wrong about. But what about when we actually address a specific thing that we believe to be true? That's where we get a little bit of a hang-up. It gets a little bit harder right there. And that right there actually is, in my mind, the most important application of critical thinking. When someone tries to convince us of something that we disagree with, we have no problem poking holes in it. We look at it, we say, okay, where does this argument fall apart? We'll think critically about it, okay? And that's good. We should do that. We should look at arguments, we should weigh them, and we should determine whether they're worth believing in. But that's just the first part of critical thinking, and I'll call it the first half, but honestly, I don't even think that it even gets to halfway. Because the most important part of critical thinking, as I said earlier, is using it against ourselves, using it against our own arguments. That's really what we need to do. And that's when we often stop critical thinking and we actually start motivated reasoning. Okay? A lot of you might be familiar with motivated reasoning. It sounds like critical thinking to us, okay? Especially to ourselves. It really feels like it's the same thing. We're doing the same process. Look, you know, we're logically following this progression. But that's not really what we're doing. We're just looking for the things that agree with what we already believe, and we're sort of rejecting. When we're weighing the strength of the evidence, that crucial part to critical thinking, we give more weight to evidence that agrees with what we already believe in, and we give less weight to evidence that disagrees with what we're believing. Now, I think the root problem where our difficulty really lies in applying critical thinking instead of motivated reasoning is our attitude towards being wrong. Okay? As a society and among ourselves, we have this attitude towards being wrong, that being wrong means we're stupid, right? That there's something wrong with us, that we feel embarrassed, we hate to be wrong, okay? You know, and being wrong can be dangerous. It can even be deadly. So fear of being wrong, it can be good. It can lead us to carefully consider something before we come to a conclusion. Okay? But then it's a double-edged sword. How does it affect us after we've come to a conclusion and we're faced with new evidence or a new challenge to that conclusion we have? The main message here today from me is to learn to love being wrong. Okay? Now, I actually hate being wrong. And everybody that knows me will not be surprised at that at all. But if you hate being wrong, if you really want to be right, you do actually have to learn to love being wrong. Finding out that you're wrong. You have to embrace it. You have to say, you know what, I was wrong, and accept it and own it and shout it out there. Now, about 6 years ago, I was a completely different person. I don't see anybody here who knew me 6 years ago. You probably wouldn't like a lot of what I had to say. I was a very, very, very different person. Was I any less intelligent than I am now? I don't think so. Intelligence just talks about our ability to learn. That's it. It doesn't say anything about whether what we're learning is actually true. And in fact, being smart, as a society, will look when I hear people often when they're trying to convince me, oh, well, you know, this person believes it and that person's really smart. Okay. Being smart does not mean you're right. Okay. Being stupid does not mean you're wrong. All right. As somebody who has been accused of being smart my whole life, I can definitely tell you that being smart actually made it worse for me. It actually encouraged me to believe absurd things. See, the thing with being smart is that you're often very persuasive, both to yourself and others. You can make it sound like you have nuanced, reasonable reasons to believe something, to support something, when in reality it's just completely bogus. You're utterly wrong. But it sounds really, really good. I used to be, or I am very good at motivated reasoning. Okay, I try to not do that. I try to instead do critical thinking now. And that's the problem with actually the more intelligent we are. It can actually be a hindrance. Okay, so let's see, where am I? This is actually the first time I've given this particular talk. So, pardon me if I cut me a little slack if I need to go back to my notes at times. All right. So 6 years I stumbled across what is known as scientific skepticism. That's what my group, the Secondary Skeptics, that's what we're based on. We're often referred to as just skeptics, but it's more specifically scientific skepticism. It's taking a scientific approach to all questions. Okay, so it's not just denying everything. It's not just I don't believe anything. Okay, it's taking that very careful scientific approach to all questions. And you know, when I first found this movement, then one of the core tenets of the movement is directing critical thought inwards. When I first found the movement, though, I'll be honest, that wasn't what drew me to the movement. What drew me to the movement is I like to win. Okay, I'm very competitive, and the internet provides us with this great tool for debate. You know, if you like to talk about these issues, you can get out there and you can find somebody to debate. And I was doing this debate, but you know, there was people that are really, really good at this stuff. And I stumbled across some podcasts and I was like, wow, these guys are really good at demolishing arguments. I want to be that good. Okay, I want to be able to tear down arguments like that. And so I started trying to learn these tools. And so then I started to come up with very good and logical arguments to support what I believed. There was this little hang-up though. Most of what I believed was totally wrong. So the arguments didn't support it. Now this was a hard thing to face. You know, it's not easy. And it's not like these were just things that I, you know, just said, oh, I believe this. No, I mean, these were things that I had actively argued for. I had taken them to heart. I had argued them to everybody who knew me. And to have to sit back and say, wow, I wasn't just a little wrong. I was ridiculously wrong. It was absurdly wrong. That was a very humbling experience. But you know what? I'm glad it happened. I'm glad, actually, that I was wrong about those things. Because that lesson, that's the best lesson that I've ever learned. I'm glad that I didn't start off on the right side of things. Because learning that I was wrong about those things, it taught me that lesson to not be embarrassed when I'm wrong. Hopefully not be embarrassed. There's still always that little bit of embarrassment. We don't like it. We're never going to like it, and that's okay. But you can learn to embrace it and not be so afraid of it. Not be so afraid to throw it out there. And you know, in the skeptic community, in the rational community, so to speak, the free thought community, I've noticed a couple different types of people. There's some of the people that they've pretty much always been on the right side of things. Those people are really, really hard to convince when they're wrong. And sometimes they're wrong, you know. And then there's other people who, like me, they used to believe in some really ridiculous things. And those people are much more willing to accept new evidence. So what I want to encourage everybody today is, going forward, try to make yourself be wrong. Try to find something you're wrong about, because I actually think we learn so much more from those times when we're wrong than we do those times that we're right. Okay, and they're there. Those things are there, and we often avoid them. You know, and sadly, the strength of the internet, of social media, that allows us to get out there and have all this information at our fingertips, we're also actually hindered because of the algorithms of things like Facebook and Google. We end up stuck in an echo chamber because those algorithms, if I put in a Google search and you put in a Google search, we're not going to end up with the same results. We're going to end up with different results based on things that Google thinks we're more likely to agree with. Right? And that's a problem, because we need to challenge ourselves. We need to expose ourselves to different thoughts, different ideas. We need to reach out of the box, and even those things that we're like, no, I'm not wrong about this. You might be wrong about it, okay? And we need to face that harsh reality. And when you do, I think if you find one of those things that you really held to your heart, and we're like, this is true, and you find out you're wrong, I think you'll find out that it's just like a huge weight lifted off your shoulders. Because you find out, hey, it's not a big deal, you know? You're not stupid. You're just as smart as you were. In fact, I think you're behaving more intelligently when you accept that you're wrong about these things. All right, so we know we're wrong about some things. We know that we often end up in an echo chamber. We know that it's hard to accept that we're wrong. These experiences that I've had, I still have to constantly remind myself. I just recently changed my mind about something that I was very, very sure of, and I looked into it, and I think I was wrong, you know? And we need to be careful to not, I hear a lot when I'm debating people, they end up saying, oh, well, that's your opinion, this is my opinion. Or, you know, you have scientific evidence, you have studies on that side, and I have studies on this side. So, you know, it's all equal, you can go either way. And while that is true, there are some things that are simply matters of opinion. Blue is better color than red. I mean, it actually is, but, you know, there are matters of opinion. But then there are things that are matters of fact. And we need to be careful to not mix those two up. Sometimes there is a right, there is a wrong on the things. When we're debating somebody, one of the things we often do is we straw man it. I'm sure a lot of you have heard the term straw man, right? You take somebody's argument and you make it weaker. You take a weak version of it, something that's easy to knock down, and you knock it down. Try to do something exact opposite. Try to steel man their argument. Take their argument and make it better. Make it as good as it possibly can be. Make it the strongest argument that it could be for that, and then analyze that argument. Now, if that argument still falls apart, well, you'll probably have a good reason to say, well, that argument's no good. Okay? If all of a sudden that argument seems to be more persuasive, well, maybe it's you that needs to examine your side and say, okay, maybe my argument's not as strong as it could be. And the other thing, the other problem that we have, that there's this double-edged sword of the internet and the information superhighway and all that, is that it can make all of us feel like we're experts because we have this information right at our fingertips and we can feel so strong on it. Well, we're not. And all of us are probably an expert at something, okay? Now imagine, you've spent years doing this thing. You're really good at it. Imagine somebody who's read an article about it on the internet, and that's it, and they're going to come tell you how to do it. Probably going to say, hey, sorry, you kind of don't know what you're talking about here. And yet we do that with experts, sometimes who have spent decades and groups of experts who do this. So that's another technique to do, is try to seek out somebody with a lot of experience in this. Somebody who disagrees with you with a lot of experience in this. So those are a couple tricks and tools to approach it. But most importantly, just try to prove yourself wrong. And I think you'll enjoy it. I think you'll actually be happy that you did. A little bit at least. All right. That's it for my talk. Thank you very much. I hope there was.
That was great. Raise your hand if you've been wrong before. Yeah. But I really like what you had to say on that. Yeah, I think that's what we could all take to heart, especially when we're on Facebook. I think that Facebook is just this breeding ground of correct and incorrect arguments and opinions, and yeah, the echo chamber is definitely strong there. All right, well, thank you so much for that. One more time for Frank Mosier. See what that means? Time to get back up on your feet.
Good song.
All right. Well done, everybody. So, at this part of the program, we have an opportunity to reflect on what Matt has shared with us. And I'll start a little timer here. We'll go for right around a minute, 2 minutes, something like that. So we're now at the point where we do our open floor, give everyone a chance to speak a little bit about what's on their mind, and maybe even talk about some of the good things that are happening in your life. There's maybe you've got new jobs, you've moved on to other things, you've all kinds of cool stuff happening. We've also got announcements to cover, a few of those as well. One of them is that we have what we call SMOOPs, our small group gathering throughout the month. And I put a little calendar together. The blue ones are ours at Sunday Assembly. Of course, we have our main service on the second Sunday of each month, but the first Sunday we often have the Pizza Possibilities. We have the Trivia Night, which I don't think is happening in July, but it has been happening a couple times. That was pretty fun. And the TED Talks and Wine, I think, have been on the fourth Saturdays of each month. I want to again thank those of you who have been helping to put those together. But we also have up on the calendar the fourth Friday of each month, the Sacrament of Skeptics. in the pub. SAC Fan, the Sacramento Free Thinkers, Atheists, and Non-Believers, has a book club on the third Monday of each month. And there's two that are in the light green that I would love to see us get going. One is Second Sundays, that happens until October, and that's over by the Art Museum.
It's downtown all over.
Or downtown all over, yeah, downtown all over. That's great. And I would love to see also a family kind of potluck thing happen again. We did that for a while. It didn't happen for a while, and so I'd love to see that get started again too. But here's the cool thing. All of you, every single one of you who's on our meetup site, you can all create events. All you have to do is click where it says to schedule a new meetup, and then you key in some information about where we're meeting and when, a little description, and then just show up. And all of you are empowered to do that. If you want to start the family potluck thing, or Second Saturday, or you just want to have a bunch of people get together and go watch Star Trek, which is coming out in a couple weeks.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Right? Or you're planning a field trip to Monterey Aquarium, or whatever it is. Put it up on the meetup site and share it with others, and you will have a group of people to join you. It's very easy to do. And if you want to do that kind of thing on a recurring basis, I'm happy to set that up, and Meetup will do it for us automatically. On that note, we're always looking for speakers, people to share their ideas and their testimonies and their life stories with people here at Sunday Assembly. And I know I've spoken to a couple of you about doing that, and I would love to lock you down and get a time or a day and schedule that for some time. And if you are thinking, yeah, I can do what Frank did, I can talk about this or that, or share my story about how how I'm living better and helping often and wondering more, please come and talk to me or anyone on the board, and we will schedule you into a program. Likewise, if you're looking to volunteer, I'm sure Nancy would love your help as well, and we can find a way to put you to work. So, with that in mind, does anyone have any announcements, anything to share with the group?
Yeah, I wanted to relay a book that I just finished reading that's kind of related to critical thinking. It's been out for a while. It's called Mistakes Were Made, But Not by Me. by psychologist Carol Tavis and a partner, I don't remember his name. But it basically details how we try to eliminate cognitive dissonance, and by doing all kinds of justifications. So we form a belief in whatever way, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves finding ways to continue to justify that belief. So it works for non-religious up to, you know, God and everything else. But some of the specific examples she brings up are things that have really affected a lot of people's lives, like the McMartin preschool case. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
Yeah.
But basically, there was a psychologically disabled mother who started making accusations against this preschool, and then psychologists and social workers started going on witch hunts and ruined a bunch of people's lives, and all of the children's accusations were totally made up. And the reason is because of the way they question them, but also the way that our memories form, so we can actually create memories. And she goes through and she examines from that, you know, through different presidencies where we went to wars for unjustified reasons, to you know, a lot of criminal convictions where you know, the investigating officers and the prosecuting attorneys, even after DNA evidence exonerates people, they continue to justify years later their belief that this person or these people were guilty of the crime. So, anyways, mistakes were made but not by me.
Oh, that's the name of the book?
Yeah. Mistakes were made, but not by me. I love the title too.
Yeah.
All right, over here.
Another recommendation for reading. It's not fun reading, but it's about critical thinking. It's a short paper, it's not a book. It's not fun because it's a testimonial of a failure of teaching critical thinking. And an appeal for, you know, what can we do better? Donald Hatcher from Baker University, and he's the most respected analyst of critical thinking instruction, because nobody has put the work into it that he has. Nobody even disagrees with him because they don't have evidence otherwise. But that book, and basically he says that it's not working. Critical thinking instruction in our university is not working. and why not? So Donald Hatcher.
Donald Hatcher?
Yeah, critical thinking, construction, and a realistic evaluation, the dream and the reality.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Right.
But it's not all pessimistic. You know, there's reason for some open. I can talk about that if you could afterwards.
Yeah, maybe at the poly. That's great. Over here, Nancy, and then over on this side.
Make me last.
Oh, okay. Back over here, Janet, and then behind her.
I'm going to go stand here so I don't have to have people hear about my head. I'm the secretary, so I'm supposed to write the minutes for our meetings, and sometimes I do that kind of early, and then sometimes I do it like on Monday. And when I'm reading the minutes and I'm typing them up, I'm like, oh, I volunteered to do something, and I have like 4 days to do it. And one of them was we really wanted to have live music at this event. Singing is fun, but when we've had people who are musicians and things, it's just funner. And that's not a critically thought, that's just an opinion. But
we have evidence, it's more fun. It's also fun.
And it's more fun when I pick the songs because then the register's this high and I can sing them. The guy behind me, very good though, thank you, keep me on edge. But anyway, so the thing that I had said that I would do is that I would go to open mic nights in Sacramento, and I always love going to Sacramento because Roseville is Roseville. And so I put up a scoop, I think, on Tuesday morning or Monday on an event to do Wednesday. Of course, last minute, nobody signed up, and I was going to already be in Sacramento that day to make kombucha, to learn how to. And so I took the scoop down, and I did go to an open mic night. I'm going to pick a better one next time, but I would like people to go, and I would also like to encourage you to go on your own. And if you see musicians that you think are kind of not good enough that they want money, but good enough for us to listen, there you go. That's what we're seeking.
That's a sweet spot right there.
When I went, it was the Gong Show, and I was just like, well, I really think it's wonderful people are following their dream and not being judgmental about themselves, and just putting it out there. And anyway, that's all I'll say. But I would like to do it again, but I would like to empower all of you to do it on your own, and to ask your friends, or even to come and tell us that, hey, you know what, you played a little banjo in your life.
Well, can I add something to that too? If you're a live music person, step up.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Erin. I just wanted to share like a thought that I read this morning that was really encouraging and kind of goes along with the whole like arguing critically and communicating respectfully with people. When I think when someone says like I'm hurting or this is a problem that I'm having, instead of saying no you're not, curiosity is a really good place to start, because you may learn something that you didn't know about their situation, and instead of like building up your own perception of how things are, you can hear it from them how things are. So I really am a firm believer in that the difference between war and peace is defensiveness and curiosity. So instead of being defensive, let's be curious.
That's great.
Thank you, Erin.
All right.
There's just a quick note to follow up on Mr. Mosier's message today. Was the search where it actually, for Google, it will actually tell you the results, but if you have Chrome or even if you have Firefox, if you want to get out of that echo chamber, make sure you go with like incognito mode, and you're less likely to get some search results that will actually echo your results.
Yeah, very good idea. Yeah, all right. And Dr. Nancy.
We're going to come up. Thomas is going to come up. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, I have 2 reasons for this.
Hello, I'm Nancy, and volunteer coordinator. I'm new at this, so things get a little rocky sometimes, like this morning when I flipped the coffee pot over and broke it. That's why there's coffee on the floor. Things happen, Also, too, okay. So what's happened is I've taken this over a couple months ago as volunteer coordinator. I'm not even sure what all the roles are yet, but we try to get things together for Sunday Assembly and then clean it up afterwards. And everyone who helps is appreciated. Last month, several young people stayed for like hour and a half afterwards. I felt bad because I wasn't really delegating fast enough to get everything done. But anyway, so far we've been struggling along and making it with a big help from Thomas. This is Thomas. You want to state yours? Well, first of all, we're leading off. I've been going out to pick Thomas up in the morning, and he's been here at 8:30 with me. I pick him up at 8 o'clock in Roseville, and he stays all day until 2:30 when I leave. So you want to talk about what's happening? I'm going to be moving out to the pocket, and he lives up in Roseville. So that's what we're leading into. Do you want to add to
Well,
that?
I have a few things to say, but to add to that, we do need more volunteers to help us set up. I have many physical ailments, and I had trouble helping out today. So if anyone could help me with a lift to here and also help us set up, that would just be perfect.
It would be great.
Do you want to say anything else on that?
And I don't mind, well, just one other thing too. It's great to have all this participation. And one of the reasons I wanted to come up and use the microphone is that when you, I'd like to encourage more people when you have something to say to speak up or use the microphone, because we do have people who don't hear as well as others. You know. Anyway, I think that's it. I just want to let you know that. Oh, okay. I really appreciate that Thomas has really helped a lot, and he does have limitations, but it's great. He can't come unless somebody picks him up. So, because he doesn't see well enough to drive apparently.
Where is he from?
Roseville, right close to the freeway.
Okay, I'm going to come back.
Oh, the other way.
So I'm going to...
Yeah, that's me. That's the thing. I live over closer now in Sacramento, but I'm moving way out to the other way. So August 1st. Okay, here you go.
Well, I have a few things to comment on today. First, the critical thinking. I was recently speaking with a woman who had talked about her children, and I said out loud, embarrassingly, I said, "But aren't you a lesbian?" She said, "Yeah, why should that prevent me from wanting children?" And then I realized that I was prejudiced, and she helped me correct that. So for that, I was thankful, and I know what you mean. Secondly, last month, I brought this ridiculous yellow ribbon, and this is in regards to my friend in Canada who I have not yet met. She has something called endometriosis. It affects approximately 10% of all women. And their chosen symbol is the yellow ribbon. So when I was looking at her selection of yellow ribbons, I said, you know what, you should make one big enough to wear as a hat. And she said, well, why don't you build me one? And I said, okay. So here it is. I've gotten my friends and neighbors to go on camera just to introduce themselves and, hey, we support you people, you know, don't feel so alone. So if anyone would like to wear this silly, ridiculous hat, that is my camera during lunch, you can come up and we'll give them any respect. Lastly, a sad note. A hero of mine, even though I only met her twice, Cleo Kosel, has recently passed away. She was, I think, 88 or 89. I remember my first words to her. I said, I'm approximately half your age, and I wish I had approximately half your energy. Now, one thing I did do is get her to do one of my interviews on camera, which I have online. And I'm hoping to post that either on the meetup page or the Facebook page for Sunday Assembly, so that way we can all honor her. She was just a fabulous woman, and my last words were to her is, I wish I could have way more conversations with her. So if you would like to have more conversations with me, we can talk about anything. So that's my announcement for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for reminding us about Cleo. She was an amazing woman. She's written a number of books, was recognized by the American Humanist Association back in the late 80s, early 90s. for her work in feminism and humanism, and she was a real treasure to have around, so thank you for reminding us. All right, any other announcements? Yeah.
Well, my thing isn't really an announcement, but it's related to the topic of critical thinking or thinking critically. When I was my major was in business, so one of the classes I took was negotiation and arguing. And one of my takeaways from that class, which I think relates to critical thinking, is often when you're in an argument or negotiating with somebody, it very much takes a duality kind of relationship. It's me against the other person. We are adversaries. And marketing does this as well. Starbucks will be like, oh, it's the cherry pink Starburst flavor against the red Starburst, which is better? And people constantly have this tendency to make things about two sides that are battling. When really in an argument, what you should be trying to do is realize that both people are more concerned about obtaining truth, obtaining the correct answer. So you're not really in a duality, me versus the other person. Let me not be wrong, because if I'm wrong, I lose in this battle. What you really are is two people on the same side who don't know everything, and you are sharing your information so that you can both become right. So when you're arguing with someone, it's helpful to think in terms of, I need to work with this person, share what I know so they share what they know, so we can both be right and we're on the same team and we're not adversaries. So I thought that was a good takeaway from my class, and it helped you admit when you're wrong, because you're not afraid of being wrong because you're trying to be right.
I love the idea of building a bridge so that both people can be right at the end of the conversation. That's really great. All right, last call for announcements. I thought I saw another hand.
I just wanted to ask, what was motivational thinking?
Motivated reasoning.
Motivated reasoning. What is that? I'm not totally sure.
So motivated reasoning, it's the process of rather than reasoning to try to get to the truth, we're reasoning to try to get to what we've already decided is the truth. Okay, so we have a targeted goal. It's a biased form of reasoning.
That which will benefit you.
Yeah, that will benefit you.
Regardless of whether or not it's true.
Right.
You have this motivation to believe that which will benefit you.
So you look for the arguments only on one side.
I'm trying to get to the truth. I'm trying to prove A.
It often sounds very similar to critical thinking, so because it uses a lot of the same language. Similar to pseudoscience will often sound scientific. It uses the same sort of language, but it doesn't have the same actual goal, and it results in some very faulty
Just trying to
conclusions.
confirm your own opinion or bias.
Yeah, exactly. Your pre-existing belief. Yeah.
Not necessarily, but just what will benefit you.
Right. Right. Well, something that will benefit you in some way, and so you're motivated.
What you already
You're
know.
motivated to come to that
Not
conclusion.
necessarily.
All right. Well, these are all great conversations to continue on into the potluck. So I hope you all stay around for that. I want to again remind everybody that Sunday Assembly is a 501c3 organization. Your donations to us are tax deductible. And if you can't help out financially, maybe you can help us out by being a volunteer, as Nancy has asked. The donations that you give us, they help rent the room, they pay for our child care activities, meetup costs, our corporation fees, that's a 501c3, the occasional advertising that we do, and so on. And so I want to thank all the donors who contributed online, in person. We're going to pass a hat around in a few minutes. And one more time, I do want to thank all of those who made today happen. Our speaker, Frank, and everyone who helped volunteer, everyone who hosted these events. Becky back there. I want to thank Matt, our photographer, and Thomas for doing the videography this time. And let's do an icebreaker. And what I'd like you guys to do is stand and talk to someone about a time that you changed your mind pertaining to today's topic. So we'll get a little music going after the icebreaker. During the icebreaker, we'll pass some hats. After the icebreaker, we've got one more song, and then we'll do our potluck. Up on your feet and introduce yourselves. Everybody, thank you so much for coming to Sunday. Everybody, thank you so much for coming to Sunday Assembly. If you are in a purple chair standing by the wall. And then let's make some room for some tables. Don't forget to put your buttons back on the table. And please continue this awesome conversation you've been having about critical thinking during the potluck. Thank you so much for coming and have a great day.
Purple chairs. Purple chairs. You know, like, not accepting it doesn't change.